I found that the process of chanting in yoga was itself a kind of early neuroscience, in the sense that people were asking this question: what are these experiences that we're having, and why are we having them? We have How do they come about? How do these experiences arise? And I find it interesting that the Eastern world, well, was really asking this question long before the Western world invented the scientific method. Um, and in some ways, yoga itself seems to be integrating philosophical ideas from the East with scientific attitudes from the West, and finding quite a bit of common language. And that seems to be a thing that in the modern age is remarkable. I know people have sometimes accused Westerners of exploiting yoga and somehow taking it from India, but the fact is that Indians brought it here. They brought it to the West, and with the idea of spreading it. Now, everything that grows has the taste of the place that it grows in. So if you're drinking wine, the taste of the grapes from one region you can plant the very same Pinot Noir in one place, and it's going to taste different when it comes up somewhere else. So yoga and chanting are going to feel and taste different when you do that at an ashram in the Bahamas as opposed to an ashram in India, or in a yoga studio in Chicago. So, but it's still the same. It's all the same grapes or apples. It's just the terroir, to use the French word, is different. And so the minerals that go into it, et cetera, are going to make up a different flavor. So it's almost as if yoga itself, if it can be said to have an intention, had an intention of finding a way to express itself in other languages. And the beautiful thing about the Sanskrit part of it is that if you study linguistics, Sanskrit is one of the root languages of most of the modern Indo-European languages. And it's really quite beautiful, in that it starts with like the sound of things and the way a sound creates a feeling. So there's a definite quality to like a sound like or oh is quite expressive in almost any language. Like those sounds seem to have an inherent meaning that whether you speak Spanish or Mandarin, it means the same thing. So there's a lot of sounds in these mantras that seem to speak to some deeper collective awareness of like where language even itself comes from. And I find that really fascinating. At last count, I think I've chanted in maybe 28 or 29 different countries. And of course, that embraces a lot of different languages. The experience of chanting a mantra in Beijing is not different from the experience of chanting it in Berlin or Boston. It's amazingly transportable, because in some ways everybody's singing a kind of beautiful nonsense. I mean, all the mantras have a meaning, but that meaning is meant to transport us beyond a sense of meaning into a place of like pure ecstasy and awareness. And it does it by often using sounds that are common to all languages and that contain in them a kind of feeling state. And that makes it very accessible to people. If you go back to the beginning of the Bhakti movement in the 14th or 15th century, it roughly parallels the Reformation in Europe. And both of them had this thing in common, this sense that the ecstatic or God or whatever you want to call it is directly contactable in an inner way. That it doesn't need to be mediated by an institution or a priesthood of any kind, and that it actually doesn't require any special knowledge. So essentially it's saying that what you're looking for already exists within you, and that these practices are ways of learning to engage it and encounter it and work with it and use it in ways that are useful. So it's incredibly democratic, and it's incredibly transportable across cultures. And of course, its message is ultimately, experientially, our fundamental unity with one another in a way that transcends our apparent differences. And that's one of the things I find really, really special about it.